Approximately 10 months ago, I started an experiment to explore what it would be like to live and work for 300 days on the road. It would be poetic to say that this started from a love of van life or radical minimalism, but this was born from chaos and disruption. I am self-isolating in a one-bedroom apartment for an indefinite period of time.
I've just had my second flight to Australia cancelled.
And along the way, I discovered some unexpected things about creativity, motivation, and success. This is what I learned. This video is sponsored by Merck, KGaA Darmstadt, Germany, and their new survey on human progress. Because, to be honest, all big experiments need some support. We tend to live our lives in pretty tight patterns, cycles, routines. So I have a question for you. How did the chaos caused by the COVID-19 pandemic upend yours? For me, March 2020 was a month that felt like a year and one I'll probably never forget. I was in New York City, the centre of it all, and to be honest, it sucked. The pattern of my life had been upended. For 6 months, I barely left my apartment, and this had a huge effect on my work and life. I felt stuck, both physically and mentally, and I was anxious more than normal. I couldn't sleep. I found myself procrastinating and not wanting to get out of bed to start work. The most overwhelming impact of the pandemic was that all of my work and life were confined to the same 4 walls. And then I wondered, what if I just left? In 1926, Henry Ford started the 9-to-5, 5-day-a-week work week. Manufacturing cars and other goods relied on workers to be physically on an assembly line for 40 hours a week. Of course, many jobs still require a physical location, but for the rest of us, this model is an antiquated relic from the past. And now we've been forced to radically rethink how and where we work. And I thought, what would happen if I had no fixed address? What if I tried to work from anywhere? It would be a big physical change, but I was more concerned with the mental change. I had a lot of questions. Would it be more stressful? Would I be unproductive working in random Airbnbs? Would it be inconvenient or annoying not having all of my stuff? Was I becoming a privileged digital nomad without self-awareness who would end up moving into a Hyatt? Would all of this make the impact of the pandemic on my workload worse? But like all experiments, you never know until you try. In the US, I wasn't under any lockdowns and there were no travel restrictions. So I bought a car, packed it with most of my stuff, handed back the keys to my dream apartment and headed to the desert. According to the research, there are lots of benefits to a change of scenery, but I was skeptical. I'm a skeptical person. Would I experience any of these benefits? In research, working from a vacation destination is called bleisure, which is possibly one of the worst portmanteaus I have ever come across. An interview-based study found that people do it to escape their daily routine, build skills from new experiences, and just for enjoyment. Another interview-based study of digital nomads found that they often built identities and lifestyles that didn't revolve around work. More generally, going to new places improves mood, and being outside has been shown to reduce anxiety and rumination, improve working memory, and boost creative problem-solving abilities. But I still wondered if all of this would solve my problems, or if I'd just get new ones. Now that I'm 300 days in, it was time for some results. Essentially, to ask more questions. So another question for you. How was your work culture affected by the pandemic? How was your motivation affected? The one thing that was most unexpected was how it affected my motivation. When I was in New York City, I was just kind of going through the motions, and because I was still working, I hadn't considered my attitude towards work. But as soon as I left, I was so creatively motivated. I had so many ideas for different types of videos that I just wanted to do more stuff. I hadn't considered what it would mean for my anxiety levels and my self-esteem, because as soon as I left New York, I stopped questioning myself and saying, am I successful? Am I doing enough work? And that kind of energy of the city that you really feed on, and for me makes me quite anxious, disappeared. Now, these questions I've been asking you, like how was your motivation affected, are inspired by the Human Progress Survey. So unlike my personal experiment of the past 300 days, this is a a real experiment that is brought to you by Merck KGaA Darmstadt, Germany. Now, the most exciting thing about this survey, in my opinion, is that you can see what everybody else has responded with in real time. So you can actually see if you're more optimistic or pessimistic than everyone else who has completed this survey. I'll tell you if I was pessimistic or optimistic at the end, but for now, I would super appreciate it if you could go and fill out this survey. I will put a link in the description as well, but I love surveys, and this one is actually very beautifully designed, and you learn a little bit about yourself and other people too. The purpose of the survey is to learn more about how we've all progressed over the past year and a half, to consider things like, what are the unexpected things that you found out about yourself? One of the main things that I discovered from this whole experiment is that when I was leaving, I was so focused on my work life. I was thinking, would I be productive? Would I procrastinate? Would I be able to get things done in random Airbnbs? And I was just so focused on output of my work that I hadn't given much time to think about my mental state or the quality of my work. And something that I discovered was how adaptable I am, for starters. I could make a video anywhere using any equipment and it was fine. I'm not sure if you even noticed. And then the second thing was how much I'm sensitive to my surroundings. So first of all, how much I'm creatively influenced by them. I'm sure that you noticed that in all of my work this year, where I was making videos about crystals and the crystal capital of the world, and I was making videos about a Wild West pharmacy when I was in the middle of the desert. All while communicating with my fact checker in Canada and my editor in Portugal. And I was so sensitive to the beauty that was around me, but also being outside, I felt like I was in such a good mood this entire time, and the light had so much to do with it. Working from anywhere, well, it can be quite intense between work, constant travel, and essentially living out of a suitcase. It is a privileged lifestyle. Not having to be confined to a specific workspace and working from a space of your choosing is an advantage that many people can't access because of the nature of their job. For my life, this experiment was extreme, and I recognize that not everybody watching has the privilege or the job or the resources to be able to do it. But there are small changes that you can make in your everyday life to realize these benefits. Spending just 20 minutes in nature can lower your cortisol or stress levels. Boredom is a mental state that allows new ideas to come to fruition. You can move your desk into the light to try to get more natural sunlight in your everyday. It took a complete disorder for me to make a change and progress, but we can all nudge our routines towards moments of boredom and wonder and creativity. You never know how much fun you'll have, what problems you'll solve, or just how pleasant work can be. Progress comes in all shapes and sizes, and human progress can change how we think. It can change the function of our brain.
I've certainly gone outside my comfort zone with creative projects in the last year that I certainly would not have normally done before. It changes the wiring in your brain and gets you a little more creative at work as well.
Thank you again to Merck KGaA Darmstadt, Germany for sponsoring this video. If you have not done the Human Progress Survey yet, there's a link here and it's in the description. It's a really cool design. Please go check it out. I would super appreciate it.